I'm sure the council will have a number of questions for you, Sir Graham. But before you open the debate, I would just like to say we have allocated 10 minutes. I understand when speaking to you, you wish to be a little bit longer. But we need to have questions from members, but I understand you wish to say a few extra words. Thank you.
Shall I remain seated?
Whatever you wish to do.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here. Part of my role as the Peace and Crime Commissioner is to get out and see what's happening in the community. And this is actually the first time I've been to a local council meeting. I've been to the county and had a very useful meeting with them. But I'm spending quite a bit of time talking to different groups about what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. Now, my efficient office tells me that I've been there for 122 days. Feels like years, actually. But when? 222, sorry. The objective to start, of course, was to set up an operation because there was nothing there. I'm the first Police and Crime Commissioner for Cambridgeshire, and that meant you had to establish yourself. And starting off, we had literally 2 or 3 weeks to get the budget, and we're talking about a budget of £131 million. We're employing something like 2,400 people, so it's a very big operation. And my role is to ensure that the Chief Constable gets the necessary finance to carry out the plan, which I will talk about in a moment. There is a division of responsibility between myself and Chief Constable. He's the man in charge of operations, not me. A lot of people seem to think that I can get involved in operations. I can't, and I don't. That is his role. It is my role to hold him accountable. And one way of doing that was to produce the Peace and Crime Plan. This is only a sort of little version of it. The real one is in 42 pages. And if you want to read it all, it is actually on the website. That sets out clearly what we expect him to do. And I hold him to account for that. We have monthly meetings where we do just that. But obviously I work very closely with him, as I do with other members of the team. So what is it all about? Well, the objectives, first of all, is to maintain local police performance. And I have to tell you that Cambridgeshire is a very good force. We're very lucky to have the Chief Constable we have, and we have a very good track record. Crime is falling, and we have, within Cambridgeshire, the 3rd safest place in the country, which is South Cambridgeshire, and the 7th safest place in the country, which is East Cambridgeshire. So we've got a lot to live up to. And the challenge we have is to keep our status on that, and to keep crime falling. We obviously have to deliver policing within the available budget, and I don't need to say anything to councillors about budgets and trying to make things balance. I was listening carefully to what the Chancellor said today as to the sort of challenges we're going to be facing in the future. Already we've got an ongoing cut in the budget for the police, and we've managed to balance that. Looking further forward, we believe we've got sustainability and we can keep it there. But there is this constant challenge of saving money. How are we doing that? Well, one of the ways we're doing it is to introduce modern technology. And again, Cambridgeshire is leading most of the country on that field because IT is one of our specialities. We have, of course, Microsoft as one of our partners, sitting in the middle of the county, and I have to say that they are doing a great job in the systems. We're hoping within the next 18 months to go paperless as far as the police are concerned. We want to increase efficiency, and ensure that we have policemen out and about. Now, one of the ways we're doing that is to do away with all the forms that they have. They often go out looking like Michelin Man with various forms in different parts. It's all going to be put on a phone, a smartphone. So they can draw up any one of their reports and fill it in then and there. It doesn't work one way, it works both ways. If they arrest someone, they'll know who it is, have they been in trouble before, is their car taxed and insured, that's all there for them. This will then give him the opportunity, once he's done that, of sending the report in. So he hasn't got to go back into the police station, as he doesn't make that report, or fill in a form and fax it, so someone on the other end has to read it and then type it into the system. It will go straight into the police system immediately. And they can sit in the car to do it, while still having eyes and ears for what's going on around them. Sit outside the coffee shop and do it. So people can see the policeman actually there, and that is important, I think, because the people were telling me they wanted to see the police out and about. The whole idea is to keep them out and about. But it is going to increase efficiency. We believe it's going to save a huge amount of money and save something like 38,000 man-hours, which is actually phenomenal. So this is how we're saving money and making ourselves more efficient. But more importantly, I'm working with other police forces neighbouring us. We already work with Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire, and we have agreements with them. We work in collaboration with road traffic for firearms and various other parts of the operation. We're developing this further with Bedfordshire, but I'm actually talking to our other neighbours. Nothing is agreed yet, but every surrounding county we're talking to. And if I can actually get more people on board so that we can share facilities, that we can share development, again, it's going to save us money. And we're talking about huge amounts of money. I think the interesting thing is that we've got some of the really big forces interested in what we are doing, including Essex, including the Met. So I don't know whether we're going to be able to do anything with them, but the carrot is there, and we hope to actually save a lot of money in doing that. Now, I've been trying, apart from working with partners myself, to get the community within Cambridgeshire working together better. And I did in fact have a seminar 4 or 5 weeks ago at Cambs to show what can be done if you sort of start thinking on a clean page. And we introduced the concept of the Glasgow model. Glasgow have worked extremely hard within the community to deal with all the various things that we're concerned about: antisocial behaviour, drunkenness, drug taking, homelessness, and it's been a runaway success. And that actually made not only a success of it, but they managed to do it without it costing anything, because it's self-funding. And Peterborough have already started to follow that, and are working on it. Learned a lot from what's happened there, and we're now trying to get other people to think about that, how we can all start working together. And I think one thing I am concerned about is that in the past, Peterborough, it is a unitary authority, it's tended to sort of been a town up north. Well, it isn't, it's part of Cambridgeshire. Whatever Peterborough does has an effect on everyone else. So we're trying to get the whole family together and to see that we can work towards those things that we hold dear. Involving the community, well, one of the things that I have done is to talk with Neighbourhood Watch. I always thought that Neighbourhood Watch was a good organisation, but it needed improving. And so we have invested some money, and we are launching in the next few weeks a piece of software called Alert that was actually developed by the Home Office specifically for Neighbourhood Watch. What this does it enables Neighbourhood Watch to be able to look on the computer in the morning to find out what has happened in the area. Have there been break-ins? Has there been a car theft? Has there been vandalism? Whatever, it's there for them to see. And if the police are looking for someone or want further information, try to get that to come back. Now this has had a remarkable impact on the community, because we suddenly find that not only is Neighbourhood Watch really keen on doing this, but we've got new people coming in to Neighbourhood Watch, particularly people with younger families who can't go out to village hall meetings in the evening. Fantastic. Some of the best networkers are the ladies who take their children to school in the morning. We've got businessmen wanting to sign up to it. We've got parish councils wanting to sign up to it. And bearing in mind how many parish councils we've got, it's going to give them that information, and we can project out what we're looking for, get people to come back and help us. Now that in itself posed a little bit of problem as to how we communicate or get people to communicate to the police. One of the first things I did when I took office was to take up with the police the question of the 101 number that did take an awful long time to answer. And I think one of the good things about being the police commissioner is you can make instant decisions, because we haven't got a committee of 17 people to go through. And I found out that they needed some extra resource in that. It was given to them immediately, and I'm pleased to say that 95% of 101 calls are now answered within 30 seconds. And it was taking 10 minutes, which I thought was an utter disgrace, and we had to put it right. So therefore, if we're asking people to help us, we can get that fed into the system. And one of the reasons I was talking to the Metropolitan Police was to see whether we can develop with them an app for a smartphone for people to report crime straight in to the central computer. It's going to take a little while to develop, but I'm quite convinced that we can do that. I'm very concerned about protecting young people. It's one of my hobbies since I've many years been involved with the Scouts, and I'm a chairman of an academy. I understand young people. And what is a shame is that we have a very good youth offending service that are really good in dealing with people, youngsters, when they're in trouble. But we don't want it to get that far. Once youngsters are in trouble, they have a black mark, they have difficulty getting a job, they never go to America. We really want to try and avoid that. And so I'm looking for and trying to get a more proactive approach, trying to deal with youngsters that are liable to get into trouble. And it's not rocket science to find them. You only want to talk to the local headmaster, because you can pick out those who are likely to get into trouble. And we want to try and get alongside them. We want to try and do things for them. And I know that some of the councils, including yours, are interested in doing something for the youngsters to get them off the street, to make them do something positive. I'm very impressed with the council, with the local people down in South Cambridgeshire that have set up an operation with 5 churches, dealing with 5 villages. And they are engaging youngsters, not just putting them in a room with lots of Coca-Cola and a pool table. They're doing that, but they're actually doing something with them. They're getting them to work in the community, getting them to engage, in perhaps clearing up rubbish in the wreck, scrubbing off graffiti, and helping the church, or helping the school with the fete. So we're actually getting young people to play a part in the community and have part ownership of the community. And this really does bring about responsibility, and so I'm very keen that we should be doing that. I wear 2 hats, as you know, the police commissioner and the crime commissioner. The crime commissioner is the thing I'm working on now, because what we want to try and do is to prevent crime. Now, a lot of people are concerned about antisocial behaviour. I think it's more concern than reality, but there are some real hotspots around the county that we have to look at. Cambridge in particular, on a Friday night and Saturday night, problems as well in Peterborough. Not so much some of the other towns, but there is still an opportunity for antisocial behaviour in not just the towns, but even the villages. And this has to be addressed. And we have to engage with the community to try to stop that. So we're looking for prevention. We're looking at ways in which we can deal with drunkenness, deal with people who need drying out, deal with people who take drugs. Then dealing with people who go out to cause hate amongst the community. And there are people who seem to love doing it, the idea of hate crime, which is a real issue. We have to deal with that. In a way, what you do not see is the various things that the police do in protecting the public. And the resources taken in protecting young people from sex offenders. It's very real, and we have to ensure that we are protecting young people. Yeah. Domestic violence is another one. And of course, we also have the problem of terrorism. Not talked about enough, but it's there. And I think Woolwich was a warning signal to everybody that this could happen. We know within our partnership, Bedfordshire do have a real problem, but there is a problem here too. And we have to ensure that we're there to protect the public. And again, it takes a lot of resource. So I'm just setting out some of the things we have to think about. Seriously organised crime is another one. We are now working jointly with the rest of the forces in East Anglia, which is Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, obviously ourselves, and we're beginning to get good results. We've had some very good results with serious crime, in solving crime, and solving it quickly too. As we have with joint operations with Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire, and Bedfordshire, dealing with, in one instance, a murder, in fact 3 murders, by using the resources of all the forces. It would have taken an awful long time for us to look at around. That was solved within a matter of days, so that is good news. Saving money, being more efficient, solving crime. So, we are looking at all those areas. I am conscious that my role is the face of the public. I hold police accountable on behalf of the public. A lot of people wondered why it was that I moved out of police headquarters to Cambs. It wasn't that I had anything against police headquarters, or certainly Huntingdon, but I wanted to show that I was neutral, and I'm not taking the side of the police, I'm taking the side of the public. And that is very important for the public to have confidence in the fact that I am doing just that and holding the police to account. Now, Madam Chairman, you give me a little bit more time, and thank you for that. I could go on for a very long time. I know you're interested in Huntingdonshire itself, and would be happy to answer questions. But do remember, I'm not responsible for operations. That is the Chief Constable, and I will take on board anything that you say. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sir Graham. Before we ask any questions, gentlemen, if you'd like to remove your jackets, that'd be quite in order. Thank you. It's rather a hot evening. Questions? Councillor Shevins?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Sir Graham, for a very interesting and enlightening introduction to what is obviously a very complex subject. I know that in particular your concern to deal with youngsters likely to get into trouble. Can I declare an interest as a trustee of Fusion? We may well come back to you on that regard. I actually need to ask for your help because I knock on certainly 4-figure doors in the course of a year. And since your appointment, there are 2 messages that come back to me the other way across the doorstep. One is that you rejected £25,000 worth of furniture, and the other is that you appointed someone on a significant salary, 3 PCSOs, who had no connection with the police. I don't know what the truth is of that. I like to provide other people with a balanced account. Could you tell me what I ought to say?
Yes, well, I don't know what the truth is on that either. But, this is obviously the press looking for stories. In terms of furniture, I didn't reject anything. We moved furniture from Huntingdon to Cambs, and the police took up what was left, as indeed the offices that were there is now occupied by the police, and that is not a problem. In terms of taking on staff, my office is still running below the level of the old police authority. You know, I want to try and keep it that way if I can, but obviously as things and circumstances change. There was a story because we had to get someone into the office to organise the diary, to actually organise the amount of correspondence, and I think I've signed well over 1,000 letters since I've been there, so it is pretty phenomenal. And we had to go to an agency, and that did cost more, and that's now working for us, and the whole thing has gone down. But as in anything, you have to grasp it. There's no use saying, well, I'm going to sit here and do nothing and send no letters out. We had to get on with it. We did get on with it, and that's what it's all about. But, as I say, my cost for my office is still below what it cost when you had the police authority. And that is my target, to try and keep it there.
Thank you, Sir Graham.
Thank you very much. I can pass that information back.
Councillor Rogers.
Chairman, Mr. Graham, in your address you mentioned working with the community. I believe one of your major challenges that you face is for the police to re-establish a rapport with the community. In the past, we had, for example, the Bobby on the beats, the village policeman. That migrated, if I may say so, to the Panda car, which was community Bobby. And then now we have nothing. Police used to attend parish council meetings. Now there is the occasional bypass. And I get the feeling from my parishioners that we've been forsaken. What are your thoughts on this, and do you have a solution?
Like you, reminiscing back on the past when you had the village policeman with the police house looking after every community, fantastic. But we've moved on from there. The cost is the driving factor. We cannot afford to do it. And you know, dealing with parishes and policemen going to parish council meetings. Yes, I'm being asked about that, but there are more people saying we want to see the policemen out. We don't want them sitting in meetings, which is why we've got the new alert system for Neighbourhood Watch, which is going to provide every neighbourhood with all the information that they require. We don't need the policemen to go and report it, it's there for them, they feedback. But yes, there will be, I've got a commitment, as you know, we have localised policing. Your local commander is Mel Dales, and they are telling me that they intend certainly to visit all 86 parishes during the course of the year, but they can't do it on every meeting. It's impossible. If we did that, we'd have no policemen outside, and I think we've got to face that as a fact. The cost of employing a policeman. One policeman means we have to employ 5 because of rotation, holidays and everything else. Now, what I'm trying to do is make it easier for people. We've got the 101 number. If people see something suspicious, are worried about something, dial 101 and tell them. Because the police who are circulating around, go and have a look, see what it's all about, investigate it. I call it a policeman in your pocket. You might not be living in the village, but if you've got one of those, 101, you're immediately talking to the police. Police assure me that throughout Cambridgeshire, that they can get to literally anywhere within sort of 4 or 5 minutes. If it's an emergency, probably even faster. But if it's a routine thing, it might take a little bit longer. But what we've got to try and understand, you know as a councillor, the restraints that you have because of the funds that you have. And bearing in mind that my authority is actually bigger than yours, I think, terms of the number of people we employ and the costs involved. I am totally sympathetic with you. I'm not unsympathetic. What I'm trying to do is release more policemen to get them outside. That's why I talked to you about the IT, saving 38,000 man-hours. We're not going to pocket that. We'll just have more policemen to be able to get out and about. And that's one of the reasons we've decided it, making ourselves more efficient, addressing the fact that we want to get policemen out on the streets where people can see them and people can talk to them.
Mr. Rogers, do you want to add that?
Thank you very much.
I noticed you said people on the streets. We don't have many streets in the villages. And my feeling at the moment is, unless you become a crime hotspot, you do not attract the attention of the police. And it's quite clear, being personally, my previous existence, being an auditor and an ambassador, what the establishment criteria are for establishing police. But 50% of our community is in the towns, 50% of our community live in villages, 49, 51, 71. It's important that the police are seen in the villages, and currently they are not being seen there.
Well, we're putting that right by getting more outside. I live in the village as well, okay, that used to have a policeman in the police house. That has gone.
I accept that.
You know, but you cannot have a policeman there all the time. They certainly come through the village. We know they come through the village. You could look at the rota. Well, you know, come on, you know, you don't expect a policeman to cycle all around Huntingdonshire.
Councillor Rogers.
You know, it is being addressed now. That is very much an operational matter. We have to make sure that we're policing the whole county, and we have to make sure we're policing all of the rural part of Huntingdonshire. If there is a specific problem, we have an excellent commander now in Huntingdon, Mel Dales, and she's one of the high flyers. And she's more than happy to engage with you and talk about what she can do. She's already addressed the fact that the police will go and talk to the 86 parish councils. And I understand fully what you're saying. I'm wrestling with it. I'm not anti it. We've got to find a way of addressing that, get more policemen out. And we're going to do some other things with the police as well to make them more visible. There are various things that I will be announcing as we go through, where we actually get the police out for people to see, people to question, people to suppose their problems with. So that's all going to be addressed. But what I can't do, honestly, is to turn the clock back and have a policeman in every village. That is not possible. But we've got to accept that it does concern people. It is an issue we've got to address, and I can assure you I am addressing it.
Councillor Deal.
Thank you, Chairman. If I kill this microphone, I was playing with it a minute ago, a bit so often, so just checking it's still working. You'll find I do this intentionally, that expects the chitty for a new one. Sorry. My question's in three parts, Sir Graham. The first part really follows on from what's just been said, and I know when I served on St Ives Town Council, which is a parish council in one of the towns near here, that at one time we had the local beat sergeant, one of the community support officers, and the PCSO used to turn up at every one of our council meetings. Once a month they spent 2 hours sitting with us, and I could never help but thinking I'd assume they were walking around the streets of St Ives rather than telling me something that could be better done by sending us a list of crime sheets. While some of us got the opportunity to beat up breast and feel a little bit better about it, it wasn't necessarily the right way of doing it. So I do have a certain sympathy with the 86 parishes, and I think that's the right way to go. My two real questions are one of them might be operational, so forgive me if it is. The first one was I read in the newspaper this week that St Ives Police Station, obviously the surplus capacity there, is going to be taken up by another group, I believe some sort of social community group, which I thoroughly applaud. So I think you the same as we have, we've got to exploit our resources as best we can. So I'm interested in that and whether you see there's opportunities for developing that more. And the other point I wanted to pick up on is once upon a time when we had our own surveillance van, quite a few of us took the opportunity at the weekends in travelling around the district and seeing what actually happens on a Saturday night in our various towns and parishes. I was quite impressed by the way that the police reacted most of the time. What did cause me some concern, and it may be something you've already picked up on, is it became quite obvious that when there was a particular problem in the district, we quite often would, for example, if there was an accident one night near RF Whitman, and basically every policeman in the area, because of the needs, was dragged in. And the police who were then covering St Ives for that night had been brought down from Wisbech, which I thought was a bit of a trek for them, but also posed the question, if something happened in Wisbech that night, who was going to pop up there and sort that? So I just really appreciate your thoughts on those two matters. Thank you.
Well, first of all, utilising police stations. We have certain space, and that is being looked at. Interestingly enough, talking to the Cambs police station, which is one of the area stations, they realised they didn't really need the front desk, and they're actually going to rent it out to the post office, which is good news, because it's actually drawing people to the police station. And it's also giving an income. So we've got to look at all those things, and I've set up an operation to actually look at that at the moment. And we will be sharing with some of the local authorities. Can we work together on this? Is this something we've got, we'd like, etc. So yeah, that's being looked at, and we haven't got a complete plan yet, but it's underway. And one of the things that I am doing is, again, talking about estate management with some of the other neighbouring authorities to see whether we can really have a real crack professional operation to do just that. So that is important. In terms of Saturday nights and whether you've got enough police on, another thing I didn't mention, but I've got a high priority, is recruiting special constables to help supplement the police force. They're seriously good, and you might be interested to know that the BBC are putting a film together about special constables. And next month, I think 1st of July, there's going to be a series of things on the television. It's all about our special constables. I've seen a preview of something. Absolutely fascinating. It really is. And Sainsbury's have been fantastic on this, including your shop here, because they're encouraging staff to think about becoming a specialist. If they do, they're giving them time off for their training, and if they pass the training, they get rewarded by fast tracking into management in Sainsbury's. So that is fantastic. And we're trying to encourage other firms to do the same so we get more. I want to try and get another 100, 150 specials on, which help to supplement, particularly at weekends. Now, in terms of coverage, in case you have a major problem and the police are involved in it, we do obviously have, we can call on Bedfordshire, we can call on a neighbouring county. We're working, with Norfolk. So when you talk about Wisbech, we do help each other on that. So there's always a backup. That is very much an operational thing, which I have to trust the Chief Constable. I do trust the Chief Constable on that. But what I can say, in case people are worried about no policeman being available, that is not the case. Because if you get an overload, you call people in, and we've got this arrangement, as I say, with neighbouring counties, particularly Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire. That sort of situation would not arise. There would always be police around. But I say what I'm trying to do very much Friday and Saturday nights is to get more specials. They've got full powers of any constable. They can deal with issues. And what we're doing, we're going a stage further. We're actually training specials so they have speciality. So, if you've got a sex offender, we've got someone within the special, several of the specials, who can actually deal with that. Deal with domestic violence. So they're not just sort of walking up down the street and, being a policeman. We're actually getting them involved in the force. And we're doing the same with BCSOs as well, training them up on specialities, so that you've got a lot of talent you can draw on, should that be required. Yeah, but I take the point, and rest assured, that is something that's been seriously thought through.
Thank you. Members, I've got 10 people on the list. Please, could you keep your questions brief? and likewise to Graham, if we may.
Bearing in mind that I've been a politician all my life, I find it very difficult.
I know you do, but you'll give it
But I'll try.
You'll be very good, thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Yes, thank you, Sue. I found some of the things you said very interesting tonight, and I do share some of the concerns that have been raised. I think my question is slightly different. It's given the low turnout in the voting for the commissioners, do you feel that you have a mandate to carry out the job really effectively?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone had the opportunity to vote. The fact that they didn't take that opportunity, those who did vote, elected me. Have I got a mandate? Yes, you bet I have. You know, I've been telling you about what I'm doing, and we're getting on with it. What I am certain about, the next time we have an election for the police commissioner, I want the public to know what we do and how we do it. There was a lot of things wrong with that last election. We shouldn't have had it in November. We should have waited to next May to do it, but that was nothing to do with me, that was the government. And we didn't have free posts, which we should have had, so that every single person had a manifesto from every single candidate. That didn't happen. But I got elected, I've got a job to do, and I'm jolly well getting on with it.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you. You listed an impressive array of crimes that you're dealing with and strategies for them. One of the words you did not use in your speech was speeding. And I think that that is one of the greatest concerns of the parish councils, that local speeding, particularly in the rural areas, is an epidemic problem. The Speedwatch organisation is there to provide a free service to the community, but they are frustrated now because the police resource to back them up is diminishing, and so their power to execute orders is falling away. Could you give me your perspective on that, please?
Yes, I think, that's something that's being looked at the moment as to how it can be dealt with. But we had a situation where the Speedwatch people were putting in something like 600 requests a week. Now that was just overloading, and it was one particular group was very enthusiastic, and it was blocking work from other parts of the county. We've got to try and get that balance right. I actually like the Speedwatch people. I've been out with them, I've seen what they've done. I know they're very effective, no question about it. Where they're operating, people are very, very careful. Interestingly, normally the people that speed are those people who live in the village. That's a fact. But we've got to find a path through that. I say it is very much sort of operational police. I am pushing at it to say, look, we want to use these people, but we've got to get the balance right. You can't just sort of trigger off every single car that comes by and insist that they get a warning letter, because it's got to be dealt with. And it did block the system up. I mean, I'm being quite honest with you, it blocked the system up. So we've got to find a way of dealing with that. And I keep pushing at it, so I haven't forgotten it. And I keep saying what, when, and how. We will get there.
Councillor West.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Graham. Sir Graham, Councillor Ryder spoke about policing in towns and villages. My concern is about the farming community, which I think is vulnerable to crime, and also people live in isolated properties. And this may be touching on operational matters, but it's not meant to be. Do you feel that is the case, and will the Rural Communities Action Team be given the same resource? Because it seems with copper theft, lots of things, diesel theft from isolated properties, etc., it seems to be something that we ought to seriously think about.
Fighting rural crime is one of our big successes. It really is. When I first looked at this, we have Farm Watch and Countryside Watch that work in conjunction with the police. There is a policing team that is sort of dedicated to that all the time. And talking to the farmers, they are absolutely delighted with what's being done, not just stealing tractors and diesel fuel and equipment, but stopping hair coursing and things like that. It's been a great success. So much so that I have funded specifically the farm watch people with a reasonable sum of money in order to keep that up and running. And it is a great success. So much so that we've got other counties looking at us to say, how have you done this? Well, I say that it's a dedicated team, worked in conjunction with the farmers, and I must applaud them because we've got nearly 900 sort of involved in that. And the networking is so rapid and so targeted that it's enabled the police to go out and arrest an awful lot of people that would have escaped otherwise.
Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Chairman. I enjoyed your presentation, Mr. Graham. Thank you very much. I hope you're not discouraged. I hope you come back and talk to us next year with some of your key ideas and achievements. My question is about how we're working with other agencies to intervene with troubled families across Cambridgeshire, so we're sharing information. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, Mr. Graham.
Well, we have got the community safety partnerships, as you know, right across the county. Every authority, including yours, has one. They bring in the partners, and we obviously work with them. Different places have different priorities and different ways of working. The one thing I'm trying to do is get it joined up a bit more, and I'm really pleased that you voted to take in eSINs, which is a piece of software which I've tried to get everyone to have, which joins everyone up as far as information is concerned on specific people. It's really helped because what it does, it flags up if you've got a particular person, whether other agencies are involved with them. Are the NHS involved? Are people who are trying to help them with drugs? Is it the Housing Association, the local authority? And it brings it all together. It's quite interesting when you look at it. You can almost see a story. It doesn't give you the details, it just tells you who's interested, so that people can pick up the phone and talk to one of the other agencies who can work together. Now, you know, I really wanted to try and get that to everyone, and I'm really thrilled that not only have you joined that, but we've got Cambridge City in it, Peterborough's in it, every local authority is now on eSINs, and it's being rolled out, and obviously all departments within community safety are going to be involved in that, so that's good. And what I try to do as well is to look at what some of the voluntary organisations are doing. Can we help them? Can I get other people interested? I'm spending a bit of time talking to industry. I've been through the Chamber of Commerce. I'm speaking to the Institute of Directors some earthly hour in the morning next week. Trying to get businesses to recognise that they have a role to play as well. It doesn't do them any good having crime around them. It doesn't do their staff any good having crime around them. And we want them to help facilitate, particularly where you've got situations like taking people off drugs. They cost a lot of money. I'm trying to get them to play their part, not just rely on the local authorities and the police authorities to do it. So I am in touch, you know, with that, with the Great Crisis and all the other sort of organisations out there, and will continue to be so.
Thank you, Councillor Bucknell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I apologise again for being late, but I did have another meeting to attend. So Graham, you mentioned 101, and over the years, I don't mind admitting I've had some rural parish council complaints. On Thursday, I phoned through 101 after an incident reported to me, and that case was all over and done with. 6 people were arrested. They came back to me and told me that they did a fantastic job. So we always hear the bad ones, but we don't hear the good ones at times. My question
That's fantastic news, thank you.
Well, it's always good to have both sides.
Yes.
My question really is, you mentioned about the South Cambs, and you mentioned about East in their league. Could you please tell me how is Huntingdonshire?
You're not off the end, you're not off the end, you know, I can assure you of that. But this was done nationally, they did the audit, which is we found that, I think everyone was fairly surprised when we realised, sitting in Cambs, we were in the third safest place in the country. And then we found that he was the 7th. But obviously there are hotspots around. You are good, but you're not in the top 10. So there's something to aim for.
Okay, Councillor Banerjee.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, the main complaint that you get as councillors is this response time.
Sorry.
Response time of the
Response
police to
time.
come. And somebody is barred and they have to wait, probably next day the police will come. But that is not good enough for this. And can you tell us that after you have taken over, has it improved the response time of the police?
It certainly has. I mean, that was something that I was made aware of, that people were concerned, and didn't need to be made aware of because I did work myself, so I was aware that very often, if there's no one hurt, they will wait, and they were sort of coming 1 or 2 days later and giving you a crime number. Now, I've said quite clearly, that is not on. The Chief Constable agrees. The rule now is, if you get a burglary, particularly in a domestic way, that the police attend on that day. Perhaps not instantly, but obviously if the burglars are there, then it is instant, I can assure you. I mean, and everything is thrown at you to try and catch them. But if you're going to prevent burglaries, you've got to start arresting burglars. And you're not going to arrest burglars unless the police get down there and look for evidence. And it's no use waiting for 2 days before you look for it. It's got to be on the same day, within a couple of hours. Now, that is the target. That is what is happening at the moment. And I want to make sure we continue that. You know, burglary is the most traumatic thing to happen to people, particularly if you're an elderly person. You know, you just want to run away. If someone's invaded your home, it is a real trauma. And I'm trying to actually deal with that as well, because one of my responsibilities next year is going to be victim support. And I'm looking at exactly how we can do that, because we've got to click in there pretty quickly, particularly where you've got vulnerable people. So yes, it's being addressed. I believe we're achieving what people want, police attending all the time, and obviously if they do that, we've got more chance of catching burglars. We've had some good success on burglaries in various parts around. You get these criminals that tend to target places, including villages. They don't live there, they come from outside. But one of the problems is locating where these people come from, you know. And it's not just villages. Because Peterborough had a spate of them, and people were coming in from Lincolnshire. You know, it weren't local people, and it takes the police a little bit more time to identify who it is and make arrests. But arrests are being made. And I say, as far as burglary is concerned, I am so concerned that the effect it has on people that we really must get to grips with it, and I believe we are.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Graham, you'll be glad to know the question. Could you please take a message back, I think, to the Chief Constable? We have a very good police force in this country. We have a long history in good policing. I think we need to actually ask you to take back a message to the Chief Constable to thank you for the work that the force does for this county and for the communities that all of us serve. So please take that message back to the Chief Constable, asking police to convey that to his staff.
That's very kind. Thank you very much indeed. You may be aware that I am so concerned that we have to introduce lots of new things in, particularly IT, and I've extended his contract in order to keep him, because not that he was going to go anywhere else, but he was thinking about retiring. But we've got that out of his head now. We've got to get this. We've got to get the show to go on and go through. And you know, as I said to you before, I think we've got a very good Chief Constable, and we've got a brilliant team as well. And I try as hard as I can to get around and talk to them and thank them. But I shall echo your words and say where it's come from. And it's really kind. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Sir Graham. With the high level of immigration that's anticipated coming into our country next year from Romania and Bulgaria, that may result in a high level of gang and knife crime. What plans are in the budget for next year in managing that process?
Well, primarily, of course, people coming into the country, it is a matter for border agency, and Home Office has now taken that over, and they're going to run that. There's been lots of things done nationally to discourage people coming here by telling them that we're not paid with gold, and they've got to qualify, they've got to be here so long before they can get free health care, before they can get unemployment money. So we're flagging that up so they are aware, they don't just walk in. So, and the border agency are going to be obviously active on that front. I think the real problem is not those who are coming, but those who are already here. Because there are a lot of people here that have come from overseas looking for work, and when the work runs out, they're obviously here with us and we have to do something about it. There's also, obviously, with people from different parts of the world, they have a different culture, different attitude to things. Certainly drinking, very different attitude to things. And we need to engage with them. And again, the police force have done a great job. Where we have the big problems, and there are, without me naming places, there are problems in certain towns. And I'm delighted that the police really have engaged. They've been using PCSOs who they're recruited from the community, which is fantastic, because they live in the community, they speak the language, and they can try and deal with it. Now we're going to obviously continue that operation as far as we're concerned. But I've had meetings with the Home Secretary. She's very well aware that we have a problem, and the local MPs have also flagged that up. So everything's going to be done to ensure that we have that under control. It's not down to me, obviously, that has to be the Home Office, but on the ground here, our police are preparing themselves in cases of more of an influx. But the big problem at the moment is not an influx, but what we've already got to deal with that.
Thank you. Councillor Calloway.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sir Graham, before here in Huntingdon, we used to have the police used to come for neighborhood forums, but it was stopped because of budget. Now, what plans do you have for us to have the police coming back to the community to restore it?
Right, I didn't get all that because my hearing is not too good, but I'm going to get the police to move out and talk to people far more. You've heard that the area commander is going to get around and talk to people, but I did have a feedback from the police because I asked a question and said I was coming here. I'm bound to ask lots of questions. Is there anything you want me to say? The district council was supposed to trial panel meetings in a new format. And that was over a year ago, and nothing has happened. And so the police do this alone, with no support or input from anywhere else. Now that's something you might have to look. You might need to look at. I would recommend that you actually talk to the area commander, Noel Dales. The whole idea of having localised policing is that you could identify someone, and I think it's really working well. But why don't you have a chat with her and see whether you can plug that particular gap. It is obviously an operational matter in terms of whether or not you've got police to do it. But from my point of view, we want to give every opportunity we can for anyone out there to be able to engage with police, and we will be doing more of that. I'm hoping that we're going to have the police not just sitting in the police station, but working with Sainsbury's to have policemen on certain days at Sainsbury's, out, in the front of the shop, so they can go up and talk to them. So we're trying to address that in every way we possibly can.
Councillor Calloway.
Thank you. The answer is okay with me. But if the district council comes to you or to the police, are you going to release that budget so that they can get assistance?
Well, it doesn't come to me. That's an operational matter. If the chief constable comes to me and says he needs resources, if we've got them, we give them to him. That's the way it's done.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Graham, resources are obviously very tight. We all understand that. Nobody will be more sympathetic with you than this group of councillors here this evening. However, you've got a marvellous resource that we don't have, and that's the specials, which you mentioned earlier. Are you aware of any particular issues in keeping hold of your specials? Because I've plenty of anecdotal evidence from friends, colleagues, and ex-forces colleagues up and down the country and in Cambridgeshire that they're not always being given the same training opportunities, operational opportunities and experience, and in some cases even equipment as regulars. And that's usually, so I'm told, down to personal, local, political and small P issues. And you can read into that very well. Are you aware of that issue? And if so, would you plan to tackle it?
Yeah, I mean, keeping specials is important, and I've flagged it right up the top. We've got 245 at the moment. I want to get it up to 350 as a target. We do have a commander responsible for the specials, for their training, and obviously looking after them. A lot of people come into the specials with a view to making a way through to the police. And in fact, a lot of the recruiting is done that way now because they're already there, they've seen them, they like them, they've already been trained, so you take them on board. Every special we have takes us just over £2,500 to equip them. And that's just equipping them. Obviously, there's a huge amount of training that goes into that before they are able to pass out. Now, I think one of the ways, and I really agree with what Chief Constable was doing, we had a long talk about this, if you want to keep someone, make it interesting, get them involved. We don't just want them to sort of stand about on a Friday night waiting for trouble. Get them trained up. So we're doing this, I mentioned before, by giving them special training. And we've got one or two who really are good now, particularly dealing with domestic violence, which does require specialist training, and the specials are doing that. And we want to work our way through, so we've got specials working in operations as well, going in headquarters doing operations. So they get an opportunity to doing everything that someone would do within the police force itself. And I think that's the way to hold them. I've raised the profile quite a lot. Every time we have a passing out, I try to be there, to congratulate them, to thank them. And I've recruited the High Sheriff to sort of come along and do supporting as well as one or two other high-profile people to show that they're important and to thank them for what they're doing. But more important, to thank the families, because they're out sort of night after night, and there's mum and the children at home. So I make a big point of thanking the families as well, and because they're all part and parcel of it. So we're doing everything, but we've got more to do. And I think this film I told you about, the BBC, I think there's three parts. Try to watch it. They're showing it during the day, so you'll have to sort of press the record button. But what I understand the BBC are going to do, they're setting it out, but it's going to be on sort of more sort of high time viewing time later on in the year. But if you watch it, and I watched one episode, and there was a young lady on there who was a nanny. Surprising, she was a nanny, looked after children. And she was arresting thugs, got them up against the wall, putting handcuffs on them. It was, what a challenge, what a wonderful challenge for people to see people do that. And the last passing out we had, I went along, and there was quite a short, slim girl, who was obviously young, and I said to her, you know, what do you do? Because we'd already talked to someone who worked on the delicatessen counter at Sainsbury's. She had just qualified as a solicitor. So we've got a very broad brush, you know, and there was another one who was a train driver. We've got people in every walk of life, and I want to keep them. I want to keep them. They're treasures, they really are. Anyone who's prepared to give that sort of time out, they've got to be looked after. And so if you see a special, thank them for what they're doing for the community. It's so important. You don't pay them, it's all done voluntarily.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. We've got one more after Councillor Reid, and we're just getting a bit short of time now.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Graham, firstly, if you could pass on our thanks certainly to our local police sergeant. Previously it was Dave Saville, and it's now Andy Strait. They really are champions of community policing, and if you could pass on our thanks, we'd be very grateful. Although we were opposed to the politicisation of the police force, we are very much in favour of driving efficiencies whilst improving the frontline services, and welcome many of the things you've suggested. However, have you got the right balance in place between PCSOs who don't have the power to arrest and warrant-holding police officers, especially in the light that there's very little differentiation between the cost of those? Why is it when grassroots police officers are telling us it's essential in making their role efficient to use CCTV effectively, do you still refuse to fund it through your budget? And we see it as so important that many of the parish councils that people in this room represent are funding it on your behalf to support their local police teams. The pledge you made to Speedwatch prior to being elected, they took at face value, and they feel very let down, and I wonder if we might have an opportunity to speak afterwards, because I genuinely believe it's the red tape in the way that's causing the clog, rather than the very motivated speed watchers out there doing a very good job. And perhaps a simple conversation over 3 points could unlock some of that red tape. But primarily my question is about backroom services. LGSS, which is a partnership between Cambridgeshire and Northamptonshire County Council, of which this council is starting to engage, is making huge strides in reducing backroom costs whilst improving frontline services. Yet their chief exec tells me that when he's approached Cambridgeshire Police and your office, he's had, to put it politely, a lukewarm response back. Are you looking far too much at policing partnerships and not enough or out-of-the-box partnerships? When you look at some of the huge figures this organisation is producing in savings, and is already looking at other police authorities outside of Cambridgeshire who are keen to partner with them in a way it seems that your team are not.
We're looking at every opportunity, and we've been talking to the County Council, who of course partner in with Northamptonshire anyway, and we're aware of that. We've obviously got to get the balance right on that front. But we are, if we're working with other partner forces, we need to all do the same thing, and that is important, and we're not certainly turning a blind eye to it. When you mentioned politicising the police, they always were politicised. You had unelected councillors on the police authority who were politicians. At least you've got one person now who's taken on that responsibility, and I do not in any way apologise for the fact that I'm a Conservative and that I've been a Member of Parliament and done all the other things I've done, including running a business and seen the world, right? So I think that is a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. As far as your Speedwatch people are concerned, it is a little more complicated than you suggest. And I am very pro them, and I've told them that. And I like what they're doing, and they're volunteers, and I like to encourage every single volunteer. But what we can't have is an operation that jams up the rest of the operation within the police. We're looking, I mean, road traffic now, we're working together with Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire, so that's sort of freed up a certain amount there. We've got to look at it, and I promise you, I've had these 3 meetings with the police about this to express my concern and try to push you're still through, and I won't be back. You've had a go at me again tonight, and I will go back with that message again tomorrow. I promise you that I will do that.
Councillor Green, on the last question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sir Graham, thanks for coming. I think I ought to start by saying, you yourself said you could speak. I don't think it's a toss-up between you and Councillor Reid who can have the longest sentence without taking a breath. You announced on your website when you were elected in November that you intended to engage with the public. I see that that's one of the bullet points on our agenda. In your first address through the website, you referred to 3 meetings that had been arranged, one in Peterborough at 2 in the afternoon, which is unfortunate for people like me because I work, one at Camborne and one at Fenland. I haven't been able to find on the website since any reference to any further meetings. So a very simple question for you. If you can't answer, maybe your assistant would know. How many surgery-style meetings have you held since you took office, and how many people turned up?
Well, I have to tell you, I've had a surgery every single month, and the uptake is not that great. I do much more when I get out and talk to people. And one of the things I'm looking at the moment is setting up street surgeries where we actually go out and look for people. And this is what I want to use Sainsbury's for as well, to actually stand there, as the police and crime commissioners, say, come and talk to us. You've got a problem, can we look at it? So I think sometimes you've got to really go out rather than waiting for people to come to you. Although I'm still going to carry on doing that, you've got to be proactive. I have appointed an outreach worker now for the northern part of the county, which includes Peterborough and Fenlands and most of the top slice of Huntingdonshire, because obviously you're all part and parcel of that. And that person is going to help orchestrate meeting with the community. And when I say the community, we've got to try to find those people who are members of organisations. You go talk to organisations, but sort of 80% of the public don't belong to anything, so you've got to get to them, which is why I'm trying to sort of use supermarkets, because most people shop, you actually get to them. But apart from that, we also want to deal with youngsters, contact schools, contact businesses, contact churches, and we are doing this. We want to hear what people have got to say, we want to try and address the issues, and we want to try and make some suggestions too as to what would be effective in various areas. Because I'm not ashamed to say that I've learned a lot since I've been in this job, and I'm learning something every day. And if I find a good idea, whether it's within the county or with one of my fellow police and crime commissioners, if I think it's a good idea, I'm going to take it on board and see how we can use it to keep Cambridgeshire safe. We are a very safe county, and we want to keep it that way.
Just a very quick one. I'm used to holding surgeries myself, and I'm not ashamed to say, to use your phrase, that we've had surgeries when we've had no one turn up. We generally get 1 or 2. So, are you ashamed to say that you've not had any, or have you had?
Oh no, I've always had people turn up.
How many?
Because they're all part and parcel. So we've got more to do, and I think this film I told you about, BBC, I think there's 3 parts. Try to watch it. They're showing it during the day, so you'll have to sort of press the record button. But what I understand the BBC are going to do, they're setting it out, and it's going to be on sort of more sort of high time viewing time later on in the year. But if you watch it, I watched one episode, and there was a young lady on there who was a nanny. So she was a nanny, looked after children. And she was arresting thugs, got down against the wall, putting handcuffs on them. And what a challenge, what a wonderful challenge for people to see people do that. The last passing out we had, I went along, and there was quite a short, slim girl. It was obviously young. And I said to her, what do you do? Because we've already talked to someone who worked on the delicatessen counter at Sainsbury's. She had just qualified as a solicitor. So we've got a very broad brush, and there was another one who was a train driver. We've got people from every walk of life, and I want to keep them. I want to keep them. They're treasures, they really are. Anyone who's prepared to give that sort of time, they've got to be looked after. And so if you see a special, thank them for what they're doing for the community. It's so important. We don't pay them, it's all done voluntarily.
Councillor Reid, we've got one more after Councillor Reid, and we've just a bit short of time there.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a great. Firstly, if you could pass on our thanks certainly to our local police sergeant. Previously it was Dave Saville, and it's now Andy Strait. They really are champions of community policing, and if you could pass on our thanks, we'd be very grateful. Although we were opposed to the politicisation of the police force, we are very much in favour of driving efficiencies whilst improving the frontline services, and welcome many of the things you've suggested. However, have you got the right balance in place between PCSOs who don't have the power to arrest and warrant-holding police officers, especially in the light that there's very little differentiation between the cost of those? Why is it when grassroots police officers are telling us it's essential in making their role efficient to use CCTV effectively, do you still refuse to fund it through your budget? And we see it as so important that many of the parish councils that people in this room represent are funding it on your behalf to support their local police teams. The pledge you made to Speedwatch prior to being elected, they took at face value and they feel very let down, and I wonder if we might have an opportunity to speak afterwards, because I genuinely believe it's the red tape in the way that's causing the problem, rather than the very motivated speed watchers out there doing a very good job. And perhaps a simple conversation over 3 points could unlock some of that red tape. But primarily my question is about backroom services. LGSS, which is a partnership between Cambridgeshire and Northamptonshire County Council, of which this council is starting to engage, is making huge strides in reducing backroom costs whilst improving frontline services. Yet their chief exec tells me that when he's approached Cambridgeshire Police and your office, he's had, to put it politely, a lukewarm response back. Are you looking far too much at policing partnerships and not enough more at the box partnerships? When you look at some of the huge figures this organisation is producing in savings, and is already looking at other police authorities outside of Cambridgeshire who are keen to partner with them in a way it seems that your team are not.
We're looking at every opportunity, and we've been talking to the County Council, and of course partnering with Northamptonshire anyway, and we're aware of that. We've obviously got to get the balance right on that front. But we are, if we're working with other partner forces, we need to all do the same thing. And that is important. And we're not certainly turning a blind eye to it. When you mentioned politicising the police, they always were politicised. You had unelected councillors on the police authority who were politicians. At least you've got one person now who's taken on that responsibility, and I do not in any way apologise for the fact that I'm a Conservative and that I've been a Member of Parliament and done all the other things I've done, including running a business and seen the world, right? So I think that is a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. As far as your Speedwatch people are concerned, it is a little more complicated than you suggest. And I am very pro them, and I've told them that. And I like what they're doing, they're volunteers, and I like to encourage every single volunteer. But what we can't have is an operation that jams up the rest of the operations within the police. We're looking, I mean, road traffic now, we're working together with Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire, so that's sort of freed up a certain amount there. We've got to look at it, and I promise you, I've had these 3 meetings with the police about this to express my concern and try to push this through. And I won't be right. You've had a go at me again tonight, and I will go back with that message again tomorrow. I promise you I will do that.
Councillor Greenhill, the last.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Sir Graham, thanks for coming. I think I'll start by saying
you yourself said you could speak, but I think it's a toss-up between you and Councillor Reid who can count on the longest sentence without taking a breath. You announced on your website when you were elected in November that you intended to engage with the public. I see that that's one of the bullet points on our agenda. In your first address through the website, you referred to 3 meetings that had been arranged, one in Peterborough at 2 in the afternoon, which is unfortunate for people like me at work, one at Camborne and one at Fenland. I haven't been able to find on the website since any reference to any further meetings. So a very simple question for you. If you can't answer, maybe your assistant would know. How many surgery-style meetings have you held since you took office, and how many people turned up?
Well, I have to tell you, I've had surgery every single month, and the uptake is not that great. I do much more when I get out and talk to people. And one of the things I'm looking at the moment is setting up street surgeries where we actually go out and look for people. And this is what I want to use Sainsbury's for as well. To actually stand there, you know, as the Peace and Crime Commissioners, say, you know, come and talk to us. You know, you've got a problem, then we look at it. So I think sometimes you've got to really go out rather than waiting for people to come to you. But I'm still going to carry on doing that. You've got to be proactive. I have appointed an outreach worker now for the northern part of the county, which includes Peterborough and Fenders and most of the top slice of Huntingdonshire, because obviously you're all part and parcel of that. And that person is going to help orchestrate meeting the community. And when I say the community, we've got to try to find those people who are members of organisations. You go and talk to organisations, but sort of 80% of the public don't belong to anything, so you've got to get to them, which is why I'm trying to sort of use supermarkets, because most people shop, you actually get to them. But apart from that, we also want to deal with the youngsters, contact schools, contact businesses, contact churches, you know, and we are doing this. We want to hear what people have got to say. We want to try and address the issues, and we want to try and make some suggestions too as to what would be effective in various areas. Because I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I've learned a lot since I've been in this job, and I'm learning something every day. And if I find a good idea, whether it's within the county or with one of my fellow Peace and Crime Commissioners, if I think it's a good idea, I want to take it on board and see how we can use it to keep Cambridgeshire safe. We are a very safe county. We want to keep it that way.
Just a very quick one. I'm used to holding surgeries myself, and I'm not ashamed to say, excuse your phrase, that we've had surgeries when we've had no one turn up. We generally get 1 or 2. So, are you ashamed to say that you've not had any, or have you had?
Oh no, I've always had people turn up.
How many of them, sir?
It varies. I think the lowest we've had is 3, but we've had bigger ones than that. I mean, when I was an MP, I used to have the most enormous surgeries because I was the last port of call, having been everywhere. And I was looking forward to surgeries because I quite enjoy surgeries, dealing with people, because you get different characters at surgeries. You suddenly pick up someone who's never been to complain or say anything before, and you think, like, God, we've got to get this sorted out double quick. You know, you've got the professional complainer. You have to deal with them all. I enjoyed meeting people and dealing with them. And we have, you know, those that have been to see us, we've dealt with everything. But more importantly, we've found more people to help by actually going out and looking for them and being around and letting them meet us. And I think it's got to be 2-pronged. You've got to have an opportunity for people to come if they want to, one-to-one, you know, out of the public eye. But you've also got to get out and talk to them.
So if the numbers are so low, are you going to abandon them?
No, I'm not.
The lowest is 3. What's the highest?
I'm not. The highest was about 11. But I'm not prepared to abandon it. No, because I still think it should be there. And these things grow. You know that. If you have a surgery, you can't abandon it because no one turned up. You keep going. And people will learn that you're there. They can come and talk to you. And it's important. I think it's everything. So having been an MP and had surgeries were massive. I was quite surprised we didn't get so many, but we will. I'm not holding my breath. I will continue to go out and search for people who actually need help, but don't know quite where to go. And so by introducing instant sleep surgeries, by appearing where you've got a lot of people, I'm sure that's the way forward, given the opportunity.
I'm absolutely winding up to thank you very much, Sir Graham, for coming this evening, giving up your time for a very interesting presentation and answered the questions very thoroughly. We've had 15 questions and I think we've done very well and very good answers. Councillor Light, you want to say a few words to finish off?
Well, only I hope that it wasn't as bad as you feel. And I hope that it was better, good enough for you to come back and talk to us again in a year's time. So I think that we've learned a lot. And there are things that we will hope will have improved over the next year. And I'm sure we'll be new plans ahead. Thank you for coming. And I think as well, I have the right to stay here and go.
Bearing in mind I've been at it since early this morning, I'm looking forward to trying getting something to eat as I need today. I wish you luck with the coming settlement, because it's going to hit you perhaps even worse than me, and we've really got to work together to make sure that we get the very best we can for the community and the resources that we have. But thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed.